O- Okay. So again, how many reasons for teaching pronunciation? How many reasons? Yes, Mr. Ahmad, you are the
I
active
think
one
it's,
today.
I think it's
Yes, remind
th-
us.
three, three. I mean, three or four. I don't remember.
Yeah,
Three,
four
three,
reasons.
four reasons.
Yeah,
Yes, four reasons.
yes, we have four reasons. Okay, what are they? Number one,
Number one, it teach. I think it
it
improves listening.
applies.
It applies to the four
It,
language skills,
yeah, that's it. That's
which
right.
is good.
Excellent. It applies to the four language skills. Okay. What about the
And
second one? Yes, it
it improves the
improves.
listening,
Great. Yes, it
and the
improves the listening.
pronunciation
Very good.
affects the self-esteem.
Excellent. We become more confident when we are able to pronounce well. Yeah. And the number four, pronunciation brings words to life. Pronunciation brings our words
Brings
or
word
speaking
life.
to life. Yes, okay. Okay, let's share our presentation again for today. It's loading, by the way. Okay. Till it's loaded, I'm going to share you another video about teaching pronunciation. I hope you like it, inshallah. I try to choose some useful ones today, so I hope you like them. Bismillah. Teaching pronunciation. Tell me when you can hear me, okay?
Thank you for joining me, and today we're going to talk about how to teach American pronunciation. This video is for you if you are an English teacher looking to improve the way you teach pronunciation and you'd like to use my framework that has been working for me for over 10 years. But this video is also for you if you're an English learner looking to improve your pronunciation and you need to know what are the steps that you need to take in order to improve your clarity and confidence in English. So, let's get started. Let's begin with the fact that pronunciation is an essential component of learning a new language. First, because it increases the intelligibility of the speaker, so the speaker is clear and actually all the knowledge of English is conveyed in a way that people can understand. Second, it really improves and increases the confidence of the speaker. The speaker feels better and more empowered when speaking, but also when listening to native speakers, because when you understand pronunciation or the pronunciation of the language, you understand the native speakers better. Another reason is that when students are able to achieve something that seems unattainable, like mastering pronunciation or sounding really, really clear in English, it makes them feel competent and capable, and that will keep motivating them on their way to achieving their goals. Now, while a lot of teachers want and know that they should incorporate pronunciation more in their teaching and their classes, they fail to do so. One of the reasons is that pronunciation is kind of vague and more challenging to teach because, on one hand, you have to teach them how to recognize those sounds and to even hear them, and at the same time, how to apply them properly. And then, once they apply the sounds, you have to give them precise feedback and to be able to recognize their mistakes. And that's when you, as a teacher, may doubt yourself in your ability to actually give concise and concrete feedback. Also, you have time constraints. You have the materials that you need to teach, you have the curriculum, and you don't know how to incorporate that in your day to day teaching because you have to go through certain materials and there is not enough time for everything. So, let's begin with the teaching pronunciation framework that I've developed of the 8 P's that has served me well in the 10 years that I've been teaching the American accent. The first P is perception. You have to teach them how to recognize the sound before you start teaching them how to make the sound. You want to make sure that they see that there is a difference between what they hear and what they perceive. Because while they may hear the actual sound, they may categorize it as another sound, a sound that does exist in their native tongue. So, for example, when trying to teach, let's say, a French speaker, in French, there is no difference between the two E sounds like in American English or in English. For example, the tense E as in sheep and the relaxed E as in ship. There is only one E. So it is very likely that a French speaker won't immediately recognize that there is a difference between sheep and how he or she may be pronouncing it as sheep. And you want to say it clearly or show them examples till they hear that there is a difference. E, E. Or the difference between sheep and ship. And it's not sheep and sheep, right? So when you do that slowly and you're not asking them to make any sounds, just to hear the difference, you're developing their perception, which is the first and more fundamental stage of teaching pronunciation, because if they can't hear it, they can't make it. Even if they can imitate the sound, but they still don't hear it on a regular basis, it won't be effective. They won't be able to implement it in their day-to-day speech. They'll be able to imitate you clearly, but they won't be able to transform the way they pronounce the sound. So you really have to focus on perception before starting anything else. The second P is pronunciation. This is a place where you teach them exactly what they need to do physically inside their mouth to make the sound. But it doesn't end there, because when I teach pronunciation, I first start with the basics. Your jaw is open, the tongue is forward, the lips pull to the sides, and the back of the tongue is high, the front of the tongue is low. But for most students, that's just not gonna mean anything to them. They'd be like, okay, let me try to do this thing with my mouth, and they think that they round the lips, but they don't really. So just telling them what they need to do is not enough. It's a great starting point, and you have to understand what the mouth is doing and to communicate that clearly, but you need to understand that that's not going to cut it for most students. So you might want to use some imageries or ways for them to measure their progress. So for example, I tell my students to use a mirror to see that they actually round their lips when they pronounce the sound. Or I may tell them, imagine like you have a hot potato in your mouth, and that immediately gets them to open the mouth, and they don't need to focus so much on the position of the jaw and the tongue, because that imagery just completely help them get to that position without being too physical. So start with the physical aspects of pronouncing the sounds, but give them other ways to understand how to pronounce and make a certain sound that will work for them. The next P is predict. Predict the pitfalls of your students. By knowing what your student is likely to do, you're able to give them feedback before even making the mistake. For example, if you have an Arabic speaking student and you're trying to teach them how to pronounce the American R. Now in Arabic, the R is trilled in comparison to American English, where the tongue pulls back for the R. So when teaching them how to pronounce the American R, you want to tell them something like, make sure the tip of the tongue doesn't touch the upper palate ever for the R. This is an indication that you are pronouncing the right sound. This is how I predicted their possible mistake, by understanding their tendencies. So I need to understand something about my students to be able to give them feedback before even making the mistake or the mispronunciation. Let me give you an example. I once had a student who used to speak with his jaw really, really close. It was really hard for him to open the mouth. He used to do that for all sounds, both in English and in Hebrew. He was a Hebrew speaker. And when I started teaching him the as in cat and the as in father, the two open vowel sounds, the first thing I said before even hearing him, you need to make sure that your mouth is super relaxed here and that you drop your jaw and you create more space. You want to see it. You want to use your fingers to make sure you create space. Otherwise, you won't be able to pronounce the sound clearly. So I gave him feedback before even having heard him, because I predicted what his possible mistakes are going to be, and that gave him focus. He was able to just work on that aspect and come a lot closer to the target pronunciation. It was a lot easier for him to finally pronounce the sound than trying it out himself without concrete feedback to begin with, or without something to hold on to as he's working towards finding the right placement for this sound. So predicting the possible pitfalls is something that is extremely helpful when coaching your students. The next P is performance. Here you want to observe the performance of your students and to give them precise and concrete feedback. You don't want to just tell them, this is not good enough, it's close, but it's not there yet, or something like, it just doesn't sound right, because that's vague feedback. Like they won't be able, it's not tangible. They won't know what to do with it. You've got to give them concrete and precise feedback. Like your tongue is too far back, you got to push it a bit more forward. Or round your lips a bit more, your lips are completely relaxed. Or your mouth is really closed, open it a bit more. Even if you're uncertain what the exact feedback should be, you gotta try different things. One of the things that I do if I don't know what to say exactly, I try to imitate the sound and to make it myself. And then I try to understand what my mouth is doing, and from there, what they need to do in order to pronounce the right sound. This is one of the ways that I discover what feedback to actually give. Either way, you gotta give them something to work with. So don't be vague and don't say general comments like, it's not good enough or it doesn't sound right, because it will just overwhelm them and make them feel discouraged. And when they feel discouraged, you lose them. They won't be motivated, and then they won't want to continue on doing this work. So you gotta give them hope. The next P is practice. Of course, practice makes better, because perfection is overrated, and we want to communicate that to our students, that whenever they practice this sound, it does not need to be perfect, especially when they're first starting out. They got to test it and try it and see how it works for them, and then train the tongue to do different things as they're practicing, because practice makes better. So first of all, you got to communicate why it's so important to practice, because if they want to use this sound spontaneously, they have to develop the muscle memory, and it only happens with practice. Also, if the way they pronounce the sound is not great yet, practice will solve it. It'll help them understand what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, and gradually move into the place or the placement of the target sound. Also, you want to develop realistic expectations. If your students work 14-hour days and you ask them to practice for 1 hour every single day, it's just not gonna happen. And then they'll feel like they're always behind, like they're not doing what they need to do. They'll feel overwhelmed, and then they'll quit. If your students feel overwhelmed, they'll quit. That's just how it works. So you want to make sure that they're constantly feeling capable. One of the things that I do is I just create really short recordings and practices for my students to work with. And then I tell them, even if you have 10 minutes a day, then just go into the drive and listen to those recordings and work with the recordings and do the work. They'll feel accomplished because they've done something. It will help them improve because they practiced. And also, it's possible. They'll come back to it the next day because they know it's not a big deal to do that. So set realistic expectations and understand your students' schedule and work around it. But the most important thing is that you gotta be very clear about what they need to practice exactly, where they can find those resources, and how much time they need to spend every single day. People need those guidelines, and when you give them guidelines, they'll be like, okay, I think I can commit to it, I think I can do it. And make it a dialogue. So ask them, does this sound feasible to you? And if they say no, you have to work with them to see what needs to be done in order for them to actually follow through and do the work. Now, as I told you, my framework consists of 8 P's, and so far we covered 5. Do you remember what they were? Perception. The second one, pronunciation. The third, predict the mistakes. The fourth, performance. And the fifth, practice. If you want to find out what the other 3 P's are, you'll have to go and download my PDF sheet with my teaching pronunciation framework. It's completely free, and you can download it by clicking the link in the description below or right up here. And you'll have the 8 P's with my insights and thoughts and notes. Okay, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. If you're an English teacher, let me know in the comments below what is the one thing that you love most about teaching English. And if you're an English learner,
So how many P's did she say about teaching pronunciation? How many P's she has? She has eight P's, but she told us about 5 P's. Do you remember what are they? I think it seems you were sleeping. What are the 5 P's? Perception, we have to know about what our learners should learn. We have performance, how will they perform, and predict their mistakes and how to deal with the mistakes. Okay, let's go back again to our presentation for today. Welcome back, my dear friends. Are you still there or anywhere?
We're here.
Alhamdulillah.
It was
So
too
again,
long that I lost focus.
yeah, okay, no problem at all. I myself lost focus, but came back again. So, how many reasons are there for teaching pronunciation? Or no, we have talked about how many reasons we have. 4 reasons. Do you remember what are they? What is the first reason? Pronunciation
It
applies
applies
to the four
skills.
language
language
skills.
skills.
Yeah. The second, it
Improves
improves
listening.
listening. 3,
The
it
physical
increases.
aspect. It brings
Yes, it's
aspect
a
of
physical
language.
aspect of language, yeah, and it brings words to life.
And
Pronunciation
affects
brings, yeah,
self-esteem. Yes.
yeah, of course, and that increases self-esteem, of course. If you are able to pronounce well, you are more confident and you feel more powerful, of course. Here are some English pronunciation games and activities, of course. Let's see what are they. The first game is bingo with minimal pairs. Do you remember minimal pairs? A
Yes.
minimal pair, yeah, is simply 2 words that vary by only one small thing. For
One sound.
example,
We omit one
yeah,
sound. Yes.
yeah. So they are 2 words that they are different in one sound. It can be at the start of the word, it can be in the middle of the word, it can be at the end of the word. So they are 2 words. They are 2 words which look the same, but they are different in one sound. Okay. So like bit, bat, cat, cut, sit, met, hit, and so on. So fill your bingo board with minimal pairs like this and then carry on as you normally would with an ESL bingo. عارفين لعبة السيجا؟ The children try to think of different words with which they look the same horizontally or vertically, and the first team to finish the whole words will say bingo, okay? And we're gonna watch a video in details about all these games. Number 2, flashcards and pronunciation. Say the word on a flashcard and encourage your learners to think of a sentence or try to put the word in a sentence to understand it or to make sure they got it. So make a sentence with the word on the flashcard. Also, game number 3, memory circle game. This is a fun way to practice pronunciation, is to use this memory circle game. The way it works is that the first student says a word from a certain set of vocabulary. For example, animals. تعالوا نلعبها كده مثلا. Today we are going to talk about animals. Noah will start with an animal which starts with letter A. For example, alligator. Ahmed will complete another by saying another animal starting with B. Like for example,
Beer.
yeah,
Beer.
bear. Very good. Yeah. And Muhammad will say another animal which starts with C. Like cat. Excellent. And Noha can say another animal which starts with letter D. Noha.
Dog.
Yeah, dog. And Rasha will say another word which animal which starts with E.
Elephant.
Yeah, great. And the Sahar will say another animal which starts with A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or F. F, yes, F. An animal which starts with letter F. Yes, okay. So, and so on. So this is a memory game, a memory circle game. You can choose a family group words like animals, jobs, fruits, vegetables, school objects, and so on. You can ask your students to start by remembering a word or saying a word, and the other completes and so on. This is an example of alphabetical order for word family, but you can adapt it the way you like it. يعني, for example, you can ask them a group of 5 children to try to remember or to tell you about the school objects. For example, Noha will say pencil, Ahmed will say pen, Muhammad will say book, Sahar will say pencil case, and so on. So this is a memory game, and you can adapt it also to the sounds you are teaching them. Then the next student say the word and adds their own, and so on. So it's like it's like a circle. One student starts with a word and the others complete the other words. Okay, this is a memory circle game. And here, English pronunciation games. Let's watch a video, okay, which summarizes all or tells us about some activities we can adapt, and come back again to our session. Okay, so are you ready for a video? Are you ready?
Yes.
Let's hear a big yes. Excellent, Mr. Ahmad. Yes, Sahar and Rasha. Okay. Let's watch the video. And this woman, I love her videos because they are applicable and easy to apply. Yes, not this woman. This woman is complicated. سيبنا من الست دي. Let's watch this. Tell me when you can hear me.
Pronunciation. I'm going to show you fun and effective ways that you can teach English pronunciation in your classroom tomorrow.
No voice.
And you can play them
Okay.
at home too. So
Is it
let's
clear?
I'm Deirdre Nicholas from Palm Tree Teaching TV, teacher, speaker, and your personal English
voice.
language coach.
No voice?
Learning and understanding English
Yes, no
pronunciation
voice.
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
I can hear.
exercises in books can get really boring.
Okay.
Today, we are
Can
going
you
to
hear the
have fun
sound?
with pronunciation.
I can
I'm
hear
going
it.
to show
I don't
you
know the
fun
rest,
and
but I
effective
can.
ways that you can
Is it
teach
clear,
English
Mr. Ahmed?
pronunciation in your classroom tomorrow. And you can play them at home too. So let's go.
Is it clear, Mr. Ahmed, or not?
Yes.
Okay.
I think
Maybe
one
it's a problem in your internet, by the way, okay? Because
Yes.
I'm sharing the audio on.
I'm Deirdre Nicholas from Palm Tree Teaching TV, teacher, speaker, and your personal English language coach. Learning and understanding English pronunciation is essential for English students. But pronunciation exercises in books can get really boring, can't they? Would you like some new ideas on how to present pronunciation in the classroom in a fun way? If so, this video will be perfect for you. I'm going to share with you pronunciation games that you can do in class if you're an English teacher, or play at home if you have some friends coming round to see you. Now, pronunciation has traditionally not been taught as much in class as, say, grammar and vocabulary. So these games will integrate pronunciation into your lessons in a fun way, as well as being effective. Now, these games will help you and your students to be able to hear the difference between the correct sound and the incorrect sound. Also to make the correct sound, and to help to recognise how to make the correct sound. So, without further ado, let's get started with my very first pronunciation game. Number 1.
Okay, you can write the games to remember them, and because I'm going to ask you about them at the end, okay? So this is
Okay.
game number 1. You can write it and you can apply it in your classroom if you like, okay?
Rhyming pair game.
Okay.
Now, this game is a pronunciation and a memory game, which works best if you divide your class into small groups, or as a learner, do it with a couple of friends at home. So you'll need to produce a set of cards for each group with one word on each card. The sets of cards should be made up of rhyming pairs of words. For example, you could have a card saying mouse, a card saying house, or die, cry, cook, book, wheat, sheet. Players place all the cards down, face down on the table. Then the first player turns over 2 cards. They say the words on the cards out loud to perfect their pronunciation, and then they say if they rhyme. Now, if they do, and they say the words correctly, they get to keep the cards. If the words don't rhyme, they put the cards back down on the table face down. And then the next player does the same. Now the winner is the one with the most cards at the end of the game. Now this may need some monitoring from you as the teacher, of course. And if you have a really large class, get a small group to the front to demonstrate in front of the others. Of course, if you're doing this with a group of friends at home, you need to nominate one person to be judge to see if the pronunciation is right, but try not to argue too much. Now, this is really useful for learners to see that words can have a similar pronunciation, although their spelling is different. Now, if you and your friend or your class are more advanced learners, of course you can change the words to more advanced things, such as square, air, pour, store, lake, break, some. So you can even do this with homophones. So words, that have the same sound but a different spelling, such as some, through, so, pair, and so on. And the other great thing about this game is that it can be used for many levels of learners, beginners, intermediates, or advanced, depending on the words you choose. Now, another great...
So what is the name of the first game?
So the rhyming bear game.
Yeah, rhyming pair game. And how can we apply it to grade 1, for example?
We put the words. We put the words on a table. For example, we have house and mouse. Words with that rhymes. Mouse and house, cry and die, wit and sheep. And we say the word aloud, and students have to match the word with the one that rhymes.
Yeah, okay. Yes, got it. Okay. But what about we can adapt it in another different way? We can, for example, write some chords with the sound B and other chords with the sound P. And we can, of course, prepare a lot of word chords at home and bring them to the classroom and ask the children, each group of them, to choose the words with the sound B, the B sound, and the other group to choose the P sound words. So we can adapt it according to the level of the students and the pronunciation rules which are in their curriculum. So we have we can adapt it or apply it in different ways according to what we are trying to teach to our learners. Okay. So the first game is rhyming pair game. They have to choose or to choose the rhyming words together, which are different in one sound, maybe consonant sound or vowel sounds according to the words. Okay. Let's move to the second game.
Pronunciation game, which is just as easy to do at home with friends or with your class as a teacher, is the tongue twister game. Now, this can work well as a warmer as well and help students to pronounce difficult sounds in English. What you do is you write on the board some tongue twisters containing sounds that your students find particularly difficult. It might be the R and the L, for example. So, lucky radio listeners rarely lose long letters. Or it could be Th and T. So, for example, tomorrow is the third Thursday of this month. Or even Ch and Sh. So, I went to the beach to teach at the car wash for cash. Now, you could even divide your class into teams and turn this into a competition. Each team nominates a speaker to come to the front of the class and they have to say the tongue twister out loud. Now, if it's correct, their team gets a point. Then they have to say it again, but faster. Again, getting a point if it's correct, and so on, getting faster and faster. So the team with the most points at the end of the game wins. So, at home, on your own or with a friend, you can have fun with repeating these tongue twisters faster and faster. And you can award points to each other for getting it right. Now, you can find more tongue twisters in my other video on tongue twisters, which I've put the link to above.
So what is the second game?
Tongue twister game.
Yeah, tongue twisters. Tongue twister is writing some sentences on the board with two different sounds, and you can ask them, yes, to pronounce faster and faster and faster. And these tongue twisters are found in Time for English in the phonics time. Do you read the sentence? You ask them to read the sentences and match to the pictures. And you can ask them to read faster and faster because these sentences have some confusing sounds like ill and ra and so on. Okay, so the first game was the rhyming pair game, and the second one was tongue twisters. Okay, let's see the third game.
Now you can add more interest to this game by getting your students to create their own tongue twisters, which is my number 3 game, creating tongue twisters. Start by writing the following things on the board. Write your first name. What did he or she do? Where? When? And why? Because. Now you get your students into teams and hand out a sheet of paper to each team. The first student writes down point 1. What is his or her name? Then he hands the sheet of paper to the second student, who answers point 2. And then they hand it to the third student for point 3, and so on. So when 5 people have written on the paper, one reads it out, and it could read something like this. Pablo put a picture in his pocket in Paris on a perfect day because it was pretty. Oh dear, that didn't seem to go down very well with that child, did it? Then, like with the tongue twisters game, make their tongue twister into a team game like the last one. Oh, before I go on to the next pronunciation game, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell so you don't miss out on any of my videos or lessons. You can do it now if you like. I can wait. And if you would like to have me help you as your personal language coach or teaching coach, just email me on the email address below, deirdre@palmtreeteaching.com. I'd love to hear from you and boost your learning. My 4th pronunciation game...
So what's game number 3?
Creating tongue twister.
Yeah, creating tongue twisters. And it's easy, by the way. You can ask a group of 5 or 8 or whatever. You can write some questions on the board and ask the first one to answer the first question, the second one to answer the second question, and write their answers on a sheet of paper till the last one. And at the end, you can ask each group of the students to read the whole sentences, the first time slow, the second faster and faster till they are perfect at pronouncing the words. Okay, let's move. So we have 3 games till now. The pair the pair what? Do you remember? The pair rhyming words. The second one, tongue twisters, and number 3, creating their own tongue twisters. Let's move to the 4th game.
It's called
Stations game.
Now, before your students can pronounce words correctly, they have to hear them correctly and recognize the difference in the sounds. This game is perfect for this. It tests how well your students hear what you, the teacher, is saying. So designate each wall in your classroom with a sound, depending on what you're teaching, of course. So for example, if you're teaching fricatives, you could label one wall S as in see, another wall Z as in zoo, another sh as in ship, and another j as in measure. Get your students to stand in the middle of the classroom. Then you say a word. Students will have to run to the ball labelled with the sound they think they hear. If they're correct, they're still in the game. If not, they're out. My 5th pronunciation game is a
What's number 4?
Station game.
Station game.
Yeah, station game. Yes. Okay. Number 5.
One, and I've called it But, Bet, Bat, Bit. Now, this is a great pronunciation game for practicing vowel sounds. Just select a list of 10 one-syllable words that begin and end with the same consonant. Choose a set with the vowel sounds that your students find the most difficult, of course. For example, how about this? But, bet, bat, bit, bought, bait, beat, bite, bot. boat. Or
Okay, can you change the first letter B to the letter C? Let's try it. Okay.
students will have to run to the wall labeled with the sound they think they hear. If each wall in your in the sounds. For example, if you're teaching fricatives, you could label one wall S as in see, another wall Z as in zoo, another sh as in ship, and another j as in measure. Get your students to stand in the middle of the classroom. Then you say a word. Students will have to run to the wall labelled with the sound they think they hear. If they're correct, they're still in the game. If not, they're out! My fifth pronunciation game is a really good one, and I've called it But, Bet, Bat, Bit. Now, this is a great pronunciation game for practicing vowel sounds. Just select a list of 10 one-syllable words that begin and end with the same consonant. Choose a set with the vowel sounds that your students find the most difficult, of course. For example, how about this? But, bet, bat, bit, bought, bait, beat, bite, bot.
Let's change the letter B to letter C. Okay. Let's change it to letter C and read them. Okay. The first one would become
Cut.
cat. The second cat.
Sit.
Cat. Yeah, sit. Yeah. Sit. Sorry. Cat.
Cat.
Sit.
Sit.
Coat. Kate. Keat.
Kite.
Kite. And
side.
cut, yeah, or sides and cut. So we can ask the children in an example like this to change the first letter or the last letter and so on to practice pronouncing the same words with the different vowel sounds. Okay, got it? And here is the example as we will see.
Boat. Or cut, caught, cute, cat, kit, cot, cart, coat, kite, coot. Now that was quite difficult even for me to say. So then you write the numbers 0 to 9 across the board, and underneath each number write one of the words. Now comes the fun part. Drill the words with the class until the students can recognise and reproduce the different sounds correctly. Tell the class that you're now going to give them a telephone number. But instead of giving numbers, give them the word that represents the number you have written on the board. So, if you wanted to give them the number 078,
it's a telephone number playing game. Okay, you write the numbers from 0 to 9 on the board. Under each number, you write some words with different vowel sounds. The words start with the same consonant sound and ends with the same consonant sounds, b and t, as in the example. You can ask your children, every one of them, to write his telephone number and write the right words under their telephone number. Got it؟ فاهمين يا جماعه اللعبه ازاي؟ يعني كل واحد فيهم بيكتب رقم التليفون بتاعه وبيكتب تحت رقم التليفون بتاعه تحت النمبر بتاعه تحت كل نمبر الكلمه اللي موجوده في التيبل and you ask them to read it correctly ونسالهم او نطلب منهم ان هم يقروها صح حسب طبعا الكلمات the words mentioned in the telephone number shown on the screen. Got it؟ وصلت يا جماعه؟
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. حد موجود؟
Yes. We got it.